Well, I can think of a few recent reviews I regret doing, although I will still say Gasoline Alley wasn't that bad. So Wednesday morning, I had actually watched another one of those VOD movies. Next month a sequel to Fortress comes out, and I hadn't seen the first, so I watched it and took some notes. And then later that day, the news of his health broke, and yeah, I'm not going to be reviewing Fortress, but it has been really awesome seeing so many people talk about all of the classics and underappreciated movies that Bruce Willis has done over the years. I know I said this before, but growing up, Bruce movies were events with me and my dad. It didn't matter what it was. We were there on opening weekend, from the Die Hard movies to stuff that kinda came and went, like Mercury Rising. There are so many movies that even to this day I go back and watch on a regular basis, just as I did when I was a kid, and his TV work too, whether it's The Greatness of Moonlighting, or his episode of The Twilight Zone, or that outstanding Season 1 Miami Vice episode No Exit. Now yeah, I could list my favorites, and a lot of it would be stuff that would pop up on about anyone's list, like Die Hard, Pulp Fiction, 12 Monkeys, or his standout supporting work in Nobody's Fool, Four Rooms, and goddamn I love this movie, his voice work in Look Who's Talking. His Letterman appearances we would always look forward to, like when he came in just shooting dummies off the rafters at one point. And believe me, some of my favorites are on this list too, but I really want to spotlight some movies that may have been overlooked, a little forgotten, or you should just check out of curiosity. So here's my list of 10 Bruce Willis movies to check out in alphabetical order. Blind Date is not only one of my favorite Bruce Willis movies, but maybe one of my favorite comedies from the 80s. It was Bruce's first major starring role in a movie, and over time has really just kinda gotten middle-of-the-road reviews. This is a Blake Edwards film where Bruce goes out on a blind date with Kim Basinger, who isn't supposed to get drunk, and then has some drinks, and not only does all hell break loose, but then they start getting comedically terrorized by her ex John Larroquette, who throughout the first couple of acts, they find new and inventive ways for him to crash his car. The physical comedy in this is outstanding. There's a whole set piece of Bruce having to sneak around this mansion to avoid everyone, including Larroquette, who does things like talk to his stuffed animals. It takes gags you've seen in many movies, a lot of them being previous Blake Edwards films, and it's just his reactions, timing, and physicality that he puts into these scenes, like getting hit with a golf ball a few times, that still makes me laugh. Color of Night I don't think really tops too many people's lists of favorite Bruce Willis movies, but it's got a craziness to it that I admire the hell out of. This came out in that 90s post-Basic Instinct period, where we were getting a lot of erotic thrillers in theaters that really hyped up the sex scenes. I don't know if the movie is sexy necessarily. In it, Bruce is a therapist trying to solve the murder of his therapist friend Scott Bakula, but it's over the top in a way you'd see in a sleazy old giallo movie. In this case, it's marketed towards a mainstream audience who didn't know what to make of it, and that made it kinda great. Going back to comedy though, and a dark one at that, Death Becomes Her is fantastic, and it's one I see a lot of love for over the years. This is a movie about the lengths people will go to all because of vanity and revenge, where Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn take a magic potion from Isabella Rossellini that allows them to live forever, which means they spend a lot of the movie tearing each other apart, breaking their necks, trying to cover up possible murders, and shooting each other with shotguns, all while Willis, in one of the most different kinds of roles you've seen him in, kinda plays the straight man in all of this, while still having this kind of nerdy quirkiness to him that really works. And you knew this next one was gonna be on the list? I adore Hudson Hawk. This is a movie that was Bruce's baby when it came out, as he also has a co-story credit on it as well. In it, Bruce is an expert cat burglar who has to steal priceless art, which could then lead to a world domination plot from Sandra Bernhardt, Richard E. Grant, and also a dog. It's a surreal movie, with the henchmen all named after candy bars, and Willis going all in on his trademark humor and wit. There's real originality in this, like Willis and his heist partner Danny Aiello timing out their robberies by the length of musical numbers, which has them singing side by side and swinging on the stars while stealing shit. It's great! The Jackal, a remake of the 1973 thriller The Day of the Jackal. Even though Willis had played a bad guy before, it was really built up at the time that this was a big action film in which he was the villain. And he plays this chameleon-like assassin who is supposedly trying to pull off some high-profile assassination, and they get Richard Gere out of jail to find him. I always thought this movie was fun. It's got a good use of a soundtrack in a couple of scenes. One very memorable scene where he just obliterates poor Jack Black with the biggest gun imaginable. And it was very fun seeing Willis at the time play just this sadistic, ruthless killer who is sometimes very cold, quiet, and intimidating, and then gets more unhinged as it goes along. Okay, not only would this one be close to the very top on my list of favorite Bruce Willis movies, but it's my favorite one on this here list. Tony Scott's The Last Boy Scout is a near-perfect buddy action comedy with one of Bruce Willis's most underrated characters. He plays a private detective named Joe Hallenbeck who teams up with a former NFL player played by Damon Wayans to at first solve the murder of Wayans' girlfriend, which then leads to this political conspiracy involving a crooked NFL team owner. He has a lot of one-liners in this, and every single one of them works. He is so damn funny in this. It is a wildly quotable film, and not only are Willis and Wayans great together, but a lot of love has to be given to the late great Taylor Negron playing a wildly against-type role as the villain Milo, one of the best and scariest action movie villains of the 90s. Here's one I rarely see get talked about, and that's Walter Hill's Last Man Standing, which, like A Fistful of Dollars, is a remake of the Kurosawa film Yojimbo. And this time it's set in the 1920s, in which Willis is a stranger who wanders into a desert town and pits both the Irish mob and the Italian mob against each other, with one of the villains being Christopher Walken. It's not as good as Fistful of Dollars or Yojimbo, but there are some very good lines, and some cool shootouts as well. Here's one too where Willis is in a villain role that predates The Jackal. It's a drama called Mortal Thoughts where Demi Moore is being interrogated by Harvey Keitel after the murder of her friend's husband, an abusive prick played by Willis, who it's seeming like she's trying to pin the murder on her friend, but there may be some truth here that she isn't telling the police until the big reveal later. Ooh, he's an unlikable character in this, and he sells it. It's actually kind of like watching a version of his character from No Exit, only if that character wasn't rich. This is one I always liked a lot too, and I never see anyone talk about it. Striking Distance is a 1993 thriller where Bruce Willis is a boat cop who is partners with Sarah Jessica Parker, and the two of them are trying to solve these murders where a serial killer is killing off all of Bruce's ex-girlfriends to try to pin the murders on him, and his calling card is to always play Little Red Riding Hood by Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs. Kinda like the killer in Sea of Love always playing that song. The movie has stuck with me since, in that when I hear Little Red Riding Hood on the radio, I always do think back to Striking Distance. And there's a great supporting cast too, including Dennis Farina, Tom Sizemore, and Robert Pastorelli. And finally, the little scene mystery comedy Sunset, which is a really original film that came out in 1988, where Willis plays real-life Western star Tom Mix, who partners with Wyatt Earp, played by James Garner, who is a consultant on his movies, as they're pitted up against an evil 1920s studio head, played by Malcolm McDowell. You can't go wrong with that description. Considering it's a murder mystery, it's actually a fairly light-hearted movie, and is very likable. As in all of Bruce's buddy movies, the two leads are fantastic together. If you haven't seen any of the movies here and they pique your interest, definitely check them out. And look, as much flack as some of those VOD movies have gotten over the years, I think we've seen over the past few days that that does not mar or take away from just how great and funny and cool and charismatic this guy is, and how much people have loved this dude over the past several decades and really cherish all of those classics he gave us, even a lot of the ones not appreciated back in their day. Thanks for watching, everyone, and please tell us some of your favorites in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.